Southside 457.
Did you know that the Southside on Lamar is a National Historic Building?
This building tells a story.
I need a story to connect to with my heart.
There are so many stories in this building.
I wanted to teach other people how to naturally love themselves, and so I ventured into the field of opening my own spot.
There are people in this building with a passion to share what they know.
When I share my knowledge and my skills and my gift, I'm serving my purpose.
Preachers, teachers, architects, attorneys, engineers, artists of all kinds in this building.
What makes this place tick to me and makes it exciting is the combination of so many different kinds of people.
It's like a melting pot.
It's like a melting pot.
15 years, I've never regretted being here at Southside.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. Let's get it on. You can't miss the princess.
Listen, Linda, listen.
Southside 457.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr., and today we have another special guest. This beautiful woman is not only the busiest woman on this floor, she is an actress, an acting coach, a filmmaker, a writer, an artist. Miss Theresa Bell,
Yay.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
So one of the first question I ask everybody is, how'd you get to the Southside? Because you have to be invited. It's not a place you bump into. It's not like, well, I was around in South Dallas and I just bumped into this place and I just said.
You know, that's true. When I tell people where I'm located, they kind of look at me as, it's south of downtown Convention Center. Oh, okay. And then when I say this old Sears catalog building, then they get it. But interesting story. I had been living in LA in the 90s, and in 2000 I moved back here for family reasons, and it had to be 2001, I'm guessing. I'm not sure when they reopened Southside, but I was invited to the grand opening, and I remember coming here and seeing some of the units, and the art was already hanging, and I thought, this place is incredible. I could have never at that time imagined being part of the community or living here or that, because it was sort of definitely a time of transition. But then, I started coaching in 2001, but it was always my living room or someone else's living room, or, just one day a week. And then as the years went on, I just got busier and busier. And finally got to a place where I had enough students where I knew I could comfortably, pay the rent. And I filled out my application, and here I am. And I've been here now since, I want to say 2011. Yeah.
2011. Let's do the math on that real quick. 13 years.
Yeah, I love it. Been great.
Wow, 13 years. So you started out as an actress. When did you fall in love with the art?
It's something I'd always wanted to do, but I grew up in small town Ohio. It wasn't something that was really, how do you do that in a suburb of Cleveland?
Yeah.
And but I had moved to Dallas in what year? The early '80s, and actually I started modeling about that time, and then I started acting in the late '80s, and luckily. My career, my journey was a little bit different than a lot of people. I don't know why. I did work fairly quickly, and there were films that came through Dallas. So, it was mostly commercial work, industrial work, but then every now and then you'd get a line in a film. So I actually got my SAG card from Oliver Stone on talk radio. Right. And then I worked with him a couple more times. Worked on Born on the 4th of July, and then worked on The Doors. When I first moved to LA, I had sent him a note and got the call, hey, can you spend a week on The Doors? I said, oh yeah, I think so. So that was pretty cool. So it was just something, I always felt like it was a calling.
Did you act in school?
No, I never did. I was always, involved in cheerleading and things like that. But
cheerleading is acting.
It is actually. It's performing. Definitely.
Performing, yeah.
But it was. After modeling for a while. Actually, I was married and had a child, and I thought, oh gosh, there's got to be more than this, even for me personally.
Yeah.
And so I told my husband, I said, I don't really think, I think I need to do something. He said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to act. He said, okay. So got the agent. And again, I started, the first audition I had, I think was for a Radio Shack commercial. And I got that. And then,
that was here in Dallas?
After another. What's that?
That was here in Dallas?
Yeah, that was in Dallas. And then it was in 1990. I knew if I wanted to do something more substantial, I had to be in LA. So my son and I left the husband, took the kid, went to LA, and again, found work pretty quickly. But I wasn't in love with it for a long time. And
You said you wasn't.
I wasn't. Once I moved, and here's the reason. I studied with a great coach. My coach was a gentleman by the name of Roy London, and at the time, his master class was Brad Pitt, Michelle Pfeiffer, Gina Davis, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, he had some amazing people, and so the scenes we were doing in class, I think the last scene I ever did for him was from Shakespeare, and yet the stuff that I was auditioning for was always victim, idiot, or accessory. And I thought, wow, this really isn't that fun to be reduced,
Yeah.
And so I had a talk with my coach, and I said, Roy, I don't understand why I'm not working more. And he goes, oh, well, I know exactly why you're not working. And he said, Hollywood doesn't make movies for women like you. He said in the 40s you would have been fine, but it's not like that now. And so I did all this research trying to figure out, why am I not working? And I realized Hollywood just basically wasn't making movies for women at all, and so it's changed a lot. Thank God for streaming and independent film, and the certainly has opened up more pathways. But at that time, I was very limited, and it just wasn't fun. So that's when I started writing, and then, like I said, I had a family thing brought me back to Dallas, and initially, when I moved back here, I had to have a real job. So I worked in a law firm. And boy, you talk about soul crushing, I mean, I think
What'd you do at the law firm?
I was a legal secretary. Okay. So, I think any artistic person, any creative person, if you're not in an environment that fosters that, it can be pretty debilitating. So I thought, well, maybe I needed a second job. And I thought, well, maybe I can coach. And so, just put out your shingle, hope for the best, and it turned out well. So yeah.
So when did you start coaching? And like, you make it sound so casual. Oh, I needed a second job, so I just started coaching. I mean, like, it takes a certain level of confidence to do that, because even though I understand acting a little bit, I wouldn't say I'm a coach. So how did you know that you were ready to teach?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I did know. I think it's like anything else. You try it and you're just like, okay, I'm good at this or I'm not. And, but I very quickly, because I had a following, and people would take, a month of class and then they'd come back, and they kept coming back. I thought, wow, this is crazy. And I mean, even now, the student that I have coached for the most number of years has been with me the entire 23 years.
Oh, wow.
And he was a lawyer at the law firm. And then he started taking classes with me, and he's never left. And, and it's important to understand, it's not like there's a degree or diploma. At this point in time, it's more like, for him, it's going to the gym. It's just staying sharp. It's his weekly workout. But then also, you make friends and you have family, and, it becomes like a family. So I don't know that I knew I would be good at it. I always felt like I had something to say, and then also I think because of my background in screenwriting, there's such an amazing synergy between, storytelling is storytelling, and it doesn't really matter which, what you're contributing to the telling of the story. We're all telling stories, and so it was a really nice marriage, and and I did it, and people stayed, and I feel really, really lucky that people, they value what I have to say. Yeah, I'm going to start getting weepy here, but I never thought that would happen. Yeah, that's nice.
So you decided to start teaching.
Yeah.
So, what, what, do you remember your first class?
I do.
What was that?
I do.
The first, do you remember, I want to know how you felt. I want to know what it is that you taught.
Oh, well, it was exciting. And basically, what happened, I was at the law firm and I thought, okay, I have to do something more creative and I need another job. So there was another school in town whose name shall remain unspoken. And I begged them for months to let me teach a gig there. And they said, well, no, because you're not anybody. You're not a director, a casting director. Anyway, we can't market you. You're just this person. I said, yeah, but I really think I'd be good at it. So they had this emergency where they had an intro to acting class that was supposed to take place, and the teacher dropped out, that day. So they called me, okay, can you fill in? Yeah, sure. So I went. And the thing is, they didn't have like a curriculum for me to teach. It was just, I was on my own. So I was thrown into this environment with, these actors. And so the very first class, I think there were 4 people. And I just kind of made it up as I went along. Luckily, I'd had so many.
You were acting.
I was acting. I was acting like I knew what I was talking about. And I think I had a little bit of street cred because, I had been in L.A. and, worked with, like I said, Oliver Stone. I had auditioned for Steven Spielberg. I worked on Night Court. I had I had done a few things.
Nice little resume.
And so I guess they thought, well, maybe she does know something. And then again at this other school, they kept coming back and they kept coming back. And then it was a handful of the students there. They pulled me aside and they said, you need to open up your own place. And I said, well, I don't know how I would. No, just do it because, they're probably paying you half. I said, well, not really. They're paying me $20 an hour, but, So luckily I was smart about it. I didn't steal their students. I left and I turned in my my resignation, and I left, and of course they followed me, and then I went from 4 to 6 to 20 to there. Right now we have 5 classes a week, and
I told you you're the busiest person on the hall.
Funny.
I wasn't joking.
Yeah, thank you.
They're everywhere, and they're acting these and the crazy thing about it is I used to be downstairs and I used to practice in the basement. And one time, there was this lady screaming at this man. And I go out to the studio, and the lady has a piece of paper, and he has a piece of paper. And she's like, going to him. And I'm like, y'all, you guys okay?
Yeah.
And then they break character, and they start laughing because they were acting. And then that's because I was downstairs. I didn't come up on the second floor yet. So, and that's how I found out, I knew you were here because a friend of mine taking your classes, but that's how I knew how much of an influence you had on these young actors and actresses.
They commit, and when they're good, especially those scenes that are a little bit more violent. I know I've had actors rehearsing down in the basement, and people have walked out. You just don't talk to her like that. I am going to call the police.
Yeah.
Wait, we're just acting.
They're at every corner. They're down this hallway. They're
not supposed to be down here, and I tell them don't rehearse in the atrium, but they do.
Yeah, but it's. I think people just those are Theresa's
T-bill actors going at it again. Yeah, we have a good time.
But it was pretty interesting because now it's what's funny is you've made that a part of the culture here at Southside.
Thank you.
It is. It's a part of the culture. Like even the people that don't know, they walk by like what? Right. They get to do that because it's part of the culture.
It is. It really is, and it's one of the things I love about this building, and the locations I had tried to be at. Not everyone is accommodating to actors or loud people, or they weren't quite as forgiving, and so it really is a perfect fit. And as long as on the second floor, I think it's mainly businesses, but there's still some residences, and every now and then a residence will be stuck next to the studio, and I was like, oh gosh, I hope you were warned, because we can get loud, and it's not often. Classes are only 3 hours long.
I've never heard any complaints. I don't think it's a negative thing. I just think that it's a more interesting thing. Like, man, like people kind of almost want to go behind the corner and just sit there and watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like just
especially if it's a good performance.
Yeah.
And I think the process is so. To this day, and I've been doing this over half my life. I'm still fascinated by the process and how Now there's a certain amount of magic that goes into it, if you allow for that.
Okay. So let's talk about what you teach and what's your approach and how do you approach? Let's say somebody comes into your class.
Yeah.
And they don't know anything about acting, but they just want to be an actor or an actress, right? This is what they want to do. And they come in and you say, come to the class. Like, what do you... Like, do you sign them up for beginning classes on different days, or how does that work? And what do you teach?
They have to come watch because I want to make sure they know exactly what they're getting into. Yeah. And the format of all the classes is basically the same. But what I teach is scene study and character analysis. So it is based on what the granddaddy of them all was Konstantin Stanislavski, and it's based on a couple of things. Somebody asked me what my mission statement or my philosophy. And I said, okay, number one, don't be boring. That's number one rule. Do not be boring. Number two, your job as an actor is to help the writer tell the story as truthfully as you can, given the information you have. And then, along with not being boring, be interesting about it. So that's what I do. I try to.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
To be interesting. You want eyeballs on you. You want people to pay to watch you. Okay. Because if you just do it and nobody cares, then nobody cares. Yeah. And the technique that I use, it has been shown, it has been found to be very interesting. People are captivated. What makes it captivating? We use this, the technique is basically 13 tools, 13 steps. So you get a scene, here's your scene, now break it down. What does that mean? It means, again, to the extent that you have the information, figure out who your character is, why are they in the scene, what is it that they're negotiating, what do they want from this other person, what are the obstacles getting in the way of what they want from this other person, and then again, how are you going to make it believable, how are you going to make it truthful, and how are you going to make it interesting. And one of the things a couple things that will make certain scenes more interesting than others will be the level of obstacles, and when actors fail, and I mean fail, when their work just isn't that interesting or truthful, it's usually because they haven't put the obstacles in place.
Give me an example of those obstacles.
Okay, let's say, for example, it's a love story and a boy meets girl, boy wants girl, but there's no obstacles. Who's going to care? However, if you make them a different race, you make them different ages, you make them live in different parts of the country, you make their parents hate one another, you make one poor, one is rich, one is educated, one is not, then we've got something to overcome. And, good writing will have that. I've seen entire movies where one scene after another was just one obstacle. The two that come to mind, one's a comedy and one is a drama. Did you see Little Miss Sunshine?
Little Miss, I don't think I have.
It's fantastic. It had Greg Kinnear and she's an amazing Australian Toni Collette.
Maybe I have seen it. I'm not good with names.
It basically. Every scene is not just, it's a catastrophe. One catastrophe after another with this family. They're on this road trip trying to get the little girl to a beauty pageant. And it is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. And then the other one that I think about, because I also think it was just as brilliant as, it's a film that Mel Gibson directed years ago called Apocalypto. And that too was just incredible. You just watch this young guy and you think, oh, he's just not going to. Or you think about a series like Breaking Bad. I think one of the greatest TV shows ever. Every episode, I remember watching it thinking, oh, they'll never get out of this. No, it's just too much. It's just too much. And then they do. You think, how'd that happen? Yeah. So
it pulls you in.
Exactly. And so, again, good writing will incorporate that, but you can't always, just because something gets made doesn't mean it's good, especially now. I tell my actors, I said, you live in the best time to be an actor and the worst time.
Yeah.
You're in the best time because there are so many avenues, so much product is needed, whether it's HBO Max or Netflix or, all of it. It's the worst time because any fool with a camera can make a movie. Yeah. And a lot of them do. And it's unfortunate because they didn't have anything to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So techniques, 13 and 1, you said. Mm-hmm. And like, what is your approach to the actor they come in there?
Well, what happens?
You give them the history?
No, I don't give them anything, and I even tell them to, read up on it. Do a Wikipedia search or IMDb and find out what you can. But don't watch the movie unless you absolutely have to, because most of the scenes that we have are from great TV shows or movies someplace. And I encourage them to not watch because throughout the years I've had actors who are really good mimics, and they'll come in and they'll do just the best Matt Damon you've ever seen. It's like, okay, that's great, but we don't really need another Matt Damon, as wonderful as he is. So let's make it your own. So they have to make the choices just based on the information that they have. And then they come in, they do the first work, which is them with their scene partner from beginning to end. I take notes, watch, and it can get kind of crazy if it's a really fast-paced scene because I have to write the lines that are working and I'll put a star next to what I'm writing, and then if it doesn't work I put a question mark just so we can talk about it, and then if it's close but not quite I'll put like a half mark, and it's really pretty neat how aligned my thoughts are often with the actors. We can get a lot accomplished when I watch a scene and I think, okay, that kind of failed on every level. And then I'll say, how'd you feel? And they'll say, well, I think I feel on every level. I'll say, okay, we're in agreement. We can work. It gets a little bit tricky when they think they just hit it out of the park. And I'll think, no, baby, that's not going to do it. But then once I explain what they need to bring into it to make it more interesting and more believable, or just again, some people pay to watch, then they get it and they make adjustments, and it's really fun to watch a rework. That's well done. Mm-hmm.
So these techniques, you said that you've taken them from, I can't pronounce his name.
Stanislavski. Yeah.
Yes. Say it again.
Konstantin Stanislavski.
Okay.
Yeah. But then he coached a bunch of really great coaches. Yeah. And right now, the book that I encourage my actors to read is called The Power of the Actor by Ivana Chubbuck. And her technique is based very much on that. And I studied with Ivana about over 30 years ago in LA, and she's wonderful.
So what can they get out of that book?
Oh, you know what? When actors read the book, and they take the class at the same time, it just makes the process so much easier, so much more enjoyable.
It's a perspective.
They fly. Well, they know every chapter is devoted to one of the tools. Okay. So you get it, and you realize what's your character's overall objective, which is from the beginning to the end of the story. And then chapter 2, scene objective. That's just in that one scene. And then chapter 3, beats and actions. Chapter 4, and I'm sure I have them out of order, but they learn the tools, and then of course the very last tool is just to let it go, because actors can get so bogged down with thinking, oh my God, I have to remember, my substitution and my inner object and my, all of that. And it can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's like anything else. I always tell them, I think that working the way that we do is like learning a foreign language, and it's just like anything else, practice, and then you just get better.
What's some of the biggest challenges that you've seen actors face in taking your class? Not with your class, but overcoming. What are some of the things that some actors or people have to overcome? Yeah. To step into, and what have you seen time and time again?
Yes, it is. Oh gosh, well, I think all artists have challenges. I think in the things that I see, some people are just better with criticism than others, and I'm just there to help. And I like to think we're all on the same page. We just want you to be brilliant. I want you to be as brilliant as you want you to be. But it's not going to happen if you keep doing this, and these are, this is what's getting in your way. They can be very self-conscious, So I think taking criticism is just harder for some people than others. And if you think about it, the artistic soul, I don't know where I read, but, the artist's soul is just woven of a finer thread. And so to think that you can take that fabric or take those threads and be harsh with it, you just can't. And so I like to think that I'm kind and gentle. I like to think that the cruelest thing I've ever said to an actor is this needs a lot of work, but I'm sure that's not the case. I'm human. And sometimes I will. I get really frustrated with actors that I see absolute brilliance in who are lazy. I have very
like not studying, not reading their lines,
they don't study. They don't go to
memorize.
class. They don't. They just think they're going to fly by on their charm and say, "Well, good luck with that." See how far they get you. No.
So being able to take criticism.
Yes.
So has that made you a better communicator?
I think so. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, I tell every class, I say, listen, this is the best version of me you're getting today in this moment, because everything else was just, prelude to this. And, I like to think I'm better at it. And then,
so it's more, you have to be a little more psychological in your approach.
oh, yes, very much so. Yeah. And all actors, all people are different. You know? So I try to quickly.
So discernment is a word.
It's probably an unconscious thing, but I quickly try to assess the personality that I'm working with and handle, as needed. Mm-hmm. There's certain people where if it were the same performance given by somebody else who was maybe a little bit tougher, they might get 10 times the notes. But if I sense that somebody is a little bit more delicate, I hold back. Sure.
So what's a situation that happened? You're like,
when
like in your class, have you ever? What's a situation that somebody wasn't able to receive what you had to say?
Yeah.
Like you have a situation like that?
Oh, it happens. I've had actors call me, arguing with me that they think I was getting personal. And I was like, well, it doesn't mean I wasn't valid what I had to say. Yeah, I don't like you. That's a problem. No. I may have unconsciously thought that. But it gets tricky. For example, again, some actors they just take everything so personally. We have depending upon the number of people in the class, I really don't like more than 5 minutes to go between scenes. Setup and what have you. And the reason is there's a certain momentum. I don't want the actors to just be sitting there talking, and I just want class to go. It keeps the energy there. But every now and then an actor, especially if it's a really intense scene and they have to get their emotional stuff in place and that, they'll feel that they need 10, 15 minutes. And it's like, that does not work for me. Because if you were on a set with a major director, money is time. Time is money. Everybody knows that. They can't wait for you to, find your inner work. You have to show up on the set with that shit in place.
Yeah.
All right. And then you modulate it and let it show. You know what the scene is. You know what's coming. I promise you, Meryl Streep doesn't show up one day, knowing what she's got to deliver and just hope it's going to be there, or have to take an hour to find it. So I have gotten on actors about taking too much time and, their feelings get hurt. And sometimes they leave. It's like, well, and I think, okay, if I'm the meanest, worst thing that's going to happen to you, this is not the business for you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
So one of the things, like you talked about being an artist and woven from a fine thread. One of the things that I always say is that anytime, like with any art, like part of the art, right? Part of being an artist is that at some point you're going to have to share the work.
Oh, yeah.
And sharing the work is different than creating the work because you put the work out there on public display.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And it's literally Judgment Day. You're going to get every opinion about it.
Yeah.
And then, and from all angles, people are going to ask you because they're just trying to relate. Some people really want to know, and some people just, and then some people just want, I don't like it green. It's like, what is this? Or they're compared to something. You get all of it.
Absolutely.
Because you welcome in every personality to almost like stand in line. Okay, next judgment, positive or negative. But the thing is that that's the sensitivity of an artist. That's what we have to. That's what we have to address, and that's what we have to deal with.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't. Otherwise, just create and keep it quiet.
Yeah. And I think that that's such a great point. And I know that everyone wants everyone to love everything they do.
Yeah.
And that's just so not realistic. And, I don't know. I always think about Van Gogh, when you think about, okay, well, here's a cat.
Yeah.
Who, when he was alive, it wasn't happening, wasn't selling.
At all.
And then you can't have, but wonder, well, did he know how great he was? Well, probably not. It probably wouldn't have ended so tragically, but I think that the key, for an actor anyway, is to find a handful of people whose opinions you value, you trust, they have no other agenda. They want you to be as brilliant as you want to be. And again, I like to think that I fill that place with some of my students, all of my students. But I think, you can get in trouble by just sending your videos home to mom and dad who don't know anything about anything and they just love everything you do. And, you stay in that soft little spot. I think you have to want to grow. You have to know that growth comes from the criticisms that you're going to receive. But be mindful, not everything is for everyone. It just isn't, So I think just, you have your little network of people whose opinions you value, you trust. I have a son who's grown, and he's got a really good eye.
I have a son who's grown.
He's grown, and he's always been really good at reading my stuff and being able to tell me this shit. Oh, okay, you're right. Because I trust his opinion. He's actually one of my best critics, and also he knows me probably better than anybody. Yeah, unfortunate for him. Yeah.
But that's so what do you love now after, because every year you chose to do it one more year.
Oh, that's true, huh? Yeah.
Every year you chose to do it one more year. So why?
Yeah.
Why like what? So you've have you had moments where you're like, I don't know if I want to continue to do this, to where I love it.
Yeah.
And then like what has that been like?
Well, another great question, Walter. It is fatiguing, and it's fatiguing, and I'm sure you're sitting here thinking, no, that can't be true. I'm an extreme introvert. Extreme. And thank God I wasn't born rich. Otherwise, I would have never left the house. I love being by myself and like creating, whether it's writing or painting or whatever. So I do find myself every now and then wanting to take some time off, like a month or two. That would be nice. But then I would miss it like crazy, because again, I do, so many of these students I've known for a long time. I do feel that they're, part of my extended family. So I like that. It's still challenged by it. I am. In terms of, oh gosh, what else do I want to do? Right now, the truth of the matter is I feel really, really incredibly lucky, because I know I've lived a life I could have never imagined, ever. And, I look at it and, I'm going into, probably the last chapters, it's just been phenomenal. And I love that, at least I like to think that I have made a difference, a little difference here and there with certain people. But the thing that I haven't done, and it's just entirely on me, I mentioned that I like to write, and I do. I've written 10 screenplays. I think 10, yeah. And
you actually won some awards, too.
Oh, what's that?
You've actually won an award or two.
A handful of my screenplays have been finalists in different competitions. And I've made some short films, so that's great. But in terms of I feel like I've got to make at least one feature film. And, unlike being a painter, I think that's what I love about painting. I don't need permission from anyone else to do it. I just grab my paints, my brush, my palette.
So let's stay there for a minute.
Yes.
What type of paintings do you paint? Like
it mostly impressionist, people, landscapes. Yeah.
Have you always done that?
No, I only started painting 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
Yeah, it was just one of those flukes. I'd always wanted to, and then my son.
So explain the fluke.
How I got into that. Yeah. My son and his wife took me to paint with a twist one night, and they give you your little 3 colors, your primary colors in white, and you pick a painting that you want to copy. And I did it, and at the end of the night, mine was the only painting that looked like an actual work of art, you know. And my son said, "That's." I said, "Yeah, it's not bad, huh?" So then,
your biggest critic said, "Wow."
Yes, yeah, for him to say it, for sure. So then I just kept practicing on my own, and then I did take some classes for about 4 years. I didn't realize it had been so long, but I had a wonderful teacher in Richardson. Her name was Bonnie Leibowitz, and I studied with her. But then life got busy. I got busier, so I stopped the classes, but I continued painting. And, again, the beauty is I do it on my own time. I don't have to have a yes from anyone else but myself to take out my canvas and paint. Whereas making a movie, you need to get a lot of yeses.
It's a lot more people involved.
Oh, hundreds. Yeah. Absolutely hundreds. When you think of the finance people, and then you need your distribution, and you need your actors, and you need your, are you going to direct it? Are you going to get a director? It's just a lot of working parts. I don't know how any movie ever gets made, really. It's just incredible that it does, because it takes a monumental amount of cooperation.
So with that said, technology has advanced a lot more since, over just a few years ago.
Yeah.
So since, 20 years since you got an acting, and you said the 80s when you
right.
moved. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that makes it possible for just any Joe Schmo to go make a movie, because any Joe Schmo could go get the quality of a camera that can do that.
Absolutely. So
to me, what I love about that is that it levels the playing field, because it's not about the. I don't have to go to film school. I just have to be able to tell my story in a way that's, like you said, interesting enough. Exactly. Add the obstacles, as you said, and be able to distribute it so people can know that it's out here in the world,
right? So
they can judge it. So,
exactly.
So, what do you think about that? Because I believe that, I think it levels the playing field, and I agree. I agree with you. Like, there's a lot of garbage that's out, but I would rather have a leveled playing field.
Oh yeah,
that gives everybody the equal opportunity.
Yeah,
versus
definitely.
Gatekeepers where you gotta. Yeah. It's like, you know what I'm talking about. To get in, there's like, well, you may have to jump through hoops and whatever.
It is. No, I'm all for the whole level playing field, and that actors have so many more opportunities. Yeah, I explained to them how lucky they are to be doing this now. And I said, when I was acting, again, over 30 years ago, I was in LA, and if I got a call from my agent, hey, you have an audition, it's at Warner Brothers. Is that okay? Well, the sides are available today after 4. Okay, great. So I get in my car, get on the 405, drive to Warner Brothers, get my sides. The next day, drive back to Warner Brothers, do my audition, drive home. The next day, you got a call back. So there's a chance that I am on the LA freeway system 4 or 5 days in a row for this for maybe one line.
Yeah.
But that's how much time and energy intensive it was. Where now, the actors get the call, hey, you on audition. They do a self-videotape, they Zoom, they send it in, and they can do, 4, 5, 10 auditions a day.
Yeah.
Where I was, doing maybe 1, if that. Yeah. But the cost of what we have going on now for actors, anyway, is that number one. Whereas, like, when I was auditioning, I might have 2 other women auditioning for the same role. That would be it, 200. And now there are literally thousands.
Yeah.
There'll be 2,000, 2,500 for the same one word, one line. And the other negative is that when I got the call back, I would go in and I would meet the writers and the producers and hey. And if you're good in person, and you're charming, that can carry a lot of weight. Where by not having a call back in person, the actors are kind of missing out because they don't have that ability to schmooze and charm and all that. Yeah,
it's just turning into a different culture altogether.
It is, and I think just for any creative filmmaker, you just got to try to stay ahead of the wave there. Try to anticipate what's coming.
AI, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that's going to impact that?
You know what? It's because I've dabbled with it a little bit. This obviously just my opinion. I first tried to use it to help me with writing.
Yeah.
And what I realized,
Chat GPT
yes.
or another.
Yes, and I realized its limitations.
Yeah.
It's very limited. And then, of course, it is limited because it's going to hit, it can only spit out what has been fed in for the past however many years. It's not great at like creating characters. It just isn't. And so I know we watched some videos on YouTube, and the consensus was that, yes, AI can create an entire screenplay, beginning to end, 3-act. And it will be written like it was written by a really smart 4th grader. And I agree with that because I've seen some of the stuff.
Really
oh my
smart.
God, this is just so elementary. It's just there aren't. It's not high art by any means. However, what I'm fascinated and I have mixed feelings about this is the whole what it can do with visual arts. That's a whole other ball game. And the stuff I've been able to put into like Midjourney and say, oh, I want to see this, and then there it is, and I say, okay, that's pretty incredible. I'm going to go paint that. Yeah.
There's another one called Runway.
Yeah, is that good?
And you can take still images and it turns them into videos.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, Pandora's box is certainly open, isn't it?
But the thing is, to me, I believe that instead of just like, there's a downside to it. Obviously,
sure.
There's a downside.
Yeah.
But there's also, I feel like when you think about musicians and artists like Jimi Hendrix, like what he did with the wah-wah pedal and all the stuff that he did with his guitar,
Right.
And if he would have the tools like that, the effects and all the stuff, like the type of music that we would hear.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
From them.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like to challenge artists is instead of trying to replicate these people who've already come, be influenced by them, but use the tools that we have that they didn't have.
Absolutely.
That's how you're able to take what they left you and stretch it. And then the next generation does it so that you just don't have a bunch of copying of generation and generation and generation and generation. When you go to a museum, it doesn't all look the same 20 years from now, other than the stuff that came before.
Yeah. No, it's an exciting time. That's for sure. Yeah. I see it as definitely helpful. It can be. Yeah. I don't think it's going to replace the true artist at all.
Well, it can't. I mean, if anything,
it can't. We won't let it.
But the two artists will be giving it prompts.
Yeah.
I definitely see it as a tool.
Yes.
I mean, there's writer's block won't exist anymore.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
I mean, it can get you going at least,
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah,
But,
I think so.
I know you have to get out of here. So
Thank you, Walter.
tell me one thing that I have not asked you, or what don't people know about you?
What don't people know about me?
Yeah, what do you think?
Oh, okay. Well, I
what's
think,
something interesting that people don't know about you?
Yeah, I think well, going back, that I'm an introvert. I think that shocks people a lot. I don't know what else they. Okay. I'm a grandmother. I don't know that I brought that up, but nothing. And I mean, nothing brings me more joy than being a grandma. It's shocking.
Grandma.
It is just shocking. Yeah, I just these little.
Do they call you? What do they?
They call me grandmommy.
Grandmommy.
2 girls, 1 boy.
2 girls.
And the boy just got here 10 days ago.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
And, my heart. I just sometimes I get scared that and don't get me wrong, I love my son and he knows that. But then you have these little creatures that you love as much.
Yeah.
Just as much, and sometimes it's scary because it's like, oh. You just don't want anything bad to happen to them ever. So, yeah. So I think people would be surprised, not only that I just love being a grandmother more than anything. Yeah. I would walk away from everything and just be a grandma 24 hours a day if we could. I don't know that they would like it, but yeah.
So is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to
No,
share?
I mean, well, it would be real personal, so I wouldn't tell you anyway. So, no, I mean, I think those are the things I'm comfortable with. I'm an incredibly private person.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know why. It's not like I'm doing anything that anyone would be shocked by, but just how I'm woven. Yeah.
Do you like the mystery?
Do I like what?
You
mystery?
like mystery.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Hopefully.
So before we get out of here, I want you to look at this camera right here.
Yes.
Tell people where they can get a hold of you.
Oh,
If they want to
yes.
come to your acting classes, they want to come and sit in, they want to reach out to you and learn more about you, where can they go and find you?
Okay, thank you, Walter. Probably the best place to find me is my website, tbellactorstudio.com, and it's Actor Studio. There's two S's, so it's Actors S Studio S.com, and truly everything you need to know about coming to observe a class, auditioning for placement, it's all there. And then there's a little art gallery too. You can look at my paintings. So thank you.
Right
Thank you,
on.
Walter.
Thank you, Theresa. Thank you. 2 hands for me.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you for coming on the show. And, well, we're going to have you back.
Okay, good.
All
Thank you. I hope I didn't bore you.
No, it was great. It was great. I had a good time. Isaac did too.
Did you have fun, Isaac? Yeah, thank you. I just don't ever want to be a bore.
No, it was interesting.
Okay.
I got to learn a little bit. I got to learn more. I didn't know. Like some interviews I'll go in and I'll read about if there's up there, but if they have a website or something like that. But then there's sometimes I just like organic. But I did read a little bit about you.
Oh, good.
But I didn't go through the whole.
Yeah.
I like conversations to flow naturally.
Yeah, surprises are nice, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So. Thank you for tuning in to the Southside 457 podcast. And until next time, peace.
Southside 457.